Okay, let's see here. Welcome back to the devlog series. It has been so long, but alas, it has been a year since I started my project for the first time. I wanted to share this journey with anybody who's actually interested in game development, to give you a general idea on what you can really get done with a busy life, zero skills, zero knowledge, and absolutely zero experience. And you procrastinate a lot, and you're lazy, and you just prioritize everything else over making videos and making the game, and then yeah. For the sake of context, we're going to go way back in time to when I first decided I was going to do this. I did computer science throughout GCSE for 3 years, and I hated it. Therefore, I did the only logical thing. Take it as an A-level for 2 more years. So it's harder. So it's argued that it's not actually no experience because, you know, I've coded things before, but I mean, like, students, back me up here. If you've ever done computer science, you would know you don't actually learn to code anything cool, interesting, or useful. So technically I'm on square one. Now you're probably thinking, oh, Oliver, where are you going with this? I'm here to learn about game development. Well, dear children, cozy up by the campfire, because the story how I started game development starts in the summer of 2024 when your boy got #cheated on. Yeah. Now, I had no life and needed a distraction, so I started doing computer science homework.
Like a nerd!
We'd be given a full sheet of coding challenges we could try. One of the challenges was to make a slot machine in Python, and since everybody loves gambling, I did it. It was fun. I watched Jay Schlatt's video where he played Deal or No Deal on the Wii, and I was like, I can code that. So I did, and it was fun. I finally ended up installing Unity after I finished that to make the game of my dreams. So I did. It was not fun. However, it's not done yet, and it won't be for a long time. But you know what they say, it's not about the destination, it's all about the... I have a man, and he blinks when he stands still. And he's affected by gravity.
He moves, not very fast, but he moves. Let's go.
Observe.
He jiggles. Look at him go. I have a walking animation. I'm animating, guys. Yes! He looks cute. And he can stick to walls. He's like Spider-Man.
I am a normal boy. I am normal. He's looking left. When you switch without moving, he's looking right. That's really triggers the bad guys that they face.
I'm making a video game. I don't know if I brought this up. So I'm here to brag.
Let me brief you on what the deal is here. Welcome back to Hell on Earth. That's because this square is an interactable, but I am a complete moron. One tutorial on YouTube that shows you how to swing on... Yes! Yes! It works! Son of a bitch! 4 hours just to get a line moving. 30 to 40 minutes trying to make smoke fly out of this bomb's crack. Oh my god, yes. Yeah! Okay, what if I just mash it as fast as I can? Oh, that's what happens. You apply pressure by putting any object on these pads, and something cool happens, set up as a little obstacle for the player to both avoid and also use to their advantage. The alien stands in it, and the radius light changes from green to red. See you in the next one. Yeah, that date on the screen is a lie. It's actually the 12th of November. I just haven't been bothered to record this video, if I'm being completely honest. Without further ado, let's hop into the Unity editor and see the progress I have made. A year ago, I opened a blank 2D project that looked like this, and turned it into... this. Now this is a lot at face value, but it's also kind of not. You could make a few levels feel unique with what I have here, but not a whole game. However, there is still a lot of content, and for those who haven't watched any of my devlogs so far, this is sort of a recap video. Bear with me, loyal fans. I know there's lots of you. First and foremost, we have the player. I've made numerous videos on the player alone because he's so complex and awesome, and man did it take me a while. I think 4 months out of the 12 was spent on this little guy alone. And make no mistake, you are not going crazy. Yes, he looks 95% identical to the kindergarten protagonist because I'm a programmer. not an artist. So when I needed a character that was easy to animate and redraw in several ways, it was a pretty safe bet. This guy can walk, jump and interact with the environment, while the alien he can turn into can do additional movements like dashing and rocket jumping, or being able to handle combat just minus the interactive ability that the human has. Forces apply to the alien, but the alien cannot apply forces to any object. Therefore, to beat the game, the player has to actively switch between the two to progress. The UI reflects which player is active through this player icon and their respective hearts. The hearts of course have one to represent a full heart and one that represents a missing heart. This line here is like an indicator of sorts. When you're the human, it lights up when they are in range of an interactable, and for the alien, it shows when they can shoot lasers in between cooldowns. The UI also shows the buffs and debuffs a player can obtain, as well as whatever special items are in your inventory. For example, this makes a nice segue into another thing I made, since one of those special items is this fuse cell that when inserted into this fuse box, can be used to unlock these laser doors, which could damage the player when active, but when disabled by the fuse box, the player can waltz right through. When the player picks up a fuse cell from the ground, this little energy icon appears, and when placed into the fuse box, it disappears. In the future, I'll tinker with this idea so you can pick up multiple fuse cells, but for now, the player can really only pick up one. Bummer, I know. Moving on to the next room, we can take a look at the enemies I've created so far, as well as few traps and other interactables. First, we have the blokes in burgundy, my parody of the Men in Black. There are 5 active BIB enemies as well as a few BIB specific traps. We have the Reaper, the Gunman, the Demolitionist, the Drone and the Spring Bomb. The Reaper carries a large scythe, winds up his attack and when the player is in range, flies aggressively towards him. The Gunman has a pistol with alien antimatter as its ammunition and when in range will shoot at the player. However, if the player is too close, it will attempt to run away. The Demolitionist is basically the Gunman on roids, firing bouncing explosives that travel fast and are harder to avoid because of their chaotic bouncing abilities, but is so strong it can be used to the player's advantage. If the grenade it launches hits a weak surface like this glass here, it will shatter it, leading to opportunities to make puzzles and fun level design. The drone is an enemy that cannot be killed by the alien, for lore purposes, yet ironically, the drone only targets the alien. Also for lore purposes. The way they can be dismantled will be explained later, for video structure purposes. The last active enemy of this group is the Spring Bomb. It simply lays idle like a landmine and when the player is close enough, it will spring to life and try to hunt down the player. The Spring Bomb is destroyed when it either hits the player or explodes by itself after a set period of time. Editor Oliver here, come to make some significant and serious additions that past Oliver, dumb stinky brain back there, forgot to include. That's why I'm wearing my Christmas jumper, because it's 6 days till Christmas. This video was supposed to come out in September. Anyway, when living enemies made of organic material die, they drop these little balls of energy, for lore purposes, and when in range of the player are absorbed and they fill up this bar, depending on how much that enemy dropped. The purpose behind this is that when the bar is full, the player obtains another heart that they lost. Therefore, to heal back health, you can't be a baby and hide until you regenerate. Instead, pull up your big boy pants and fight for your life in order to continue. Heavy stuff. Besides the BIB, the other set of enemies I've developed is the Cult, a group of mercenaries that are experts in the field of dark magic. So far, because I plan on releasing the first 2 levels onto Steam early before the whole game is finished, I haven't really given the Cult much attention because they don't come in until level 3. However, I've still developed a handful. I have 3 cultists so far, codenamed the Sludger, the Rager, and the Summoner. These enemies usually fight idly, being completely motionless until approached. This is because they are mostly support enemies who focus more on slowing the player down rather than being primarily responsible for the player's downfall. Starting with the Sludger, this enemy shoots a slow moving orb that follows the player until it hits a surface or the player itself. Upon hitting the player is covered in thick, sticky purple sludge that cuts movement speed in half for 5 seconds. When the player gets too close to the Sludger, he runs away in a panic, similar to the BIB Gunman. On its own, it's harmless, but in a room full of other guys relentlessly trying to kill you is a nightmare combination. After that, I developed the Rager. Oh joy. Longtime fans of the devlog series will remember that this guy caused me a lot of pain when developing. However, now that he's developed, I think this is a very well made and well balanced enemy. He simply points his red laser sight at the player for a set amount of time before the laser becomes deadly, dealing 1 heart of damage if touched in its red state. Unlike the others, this enemy doesn't run when confronted, because he's so tough. This brings us to the last cult member so far, the Summoner. In a nutshell, this enemy fires a homing spirit bomb that sluggishly follows the player until it collides with a surface. Like the grenades from the BIB launcher enemy, this bomb can also break weak surfaces when collided, and like the sludger, runs away when too close to the player. That's about everything I wanted to include in my December Christmas state, so I'm going to go back to Dum Dum Stinky Brain Past Oliver, who forgot all of this and made me want to kill myself. Past Oliver, who forgot to add all of this in to begin with, so then I had to script, record, edit, and tidy up everything. When really I should just be recording gameplay footage. I'm not going to have Christmas this year. Then we have the traps. The buzzsaw. It spins around and does damage. That's all it does. The player is just supposed to not touch it. Duh. Laser saw. Basically just a buzzsaw, but bigger, cooler, and a larger range to slap the player around. Again, nothing too fancy. Now this is where things get a little more interesting. Player proximity detection radioactive microwaver, or PP microwave for short. The name is still a work in progress. Once the alien, not the human, just the alien, is detected by this green radius, it will slowly turn red. Then when it turns true red, it slowly starts cooking the player's health. That's pretty cool, right? Right? Which one of you motherfuckers said no? I heard you. Banned. Static turrets. They could be stood up on this tripod looking stand or mounted to the wall. They shoot the same bullets as the gunman enemy and follow along this red laser sight. Then you have the dynamic turrets. That means it moves. Not too much, it just spins to track the player. Fun fact, those are actually new. So technically this counts as a devlog video. Devlog 6 is officially out. About time, this is all you're getting. Merry Christmas. Yeah, you're not getting devlog 7 till 2026. Isn't that awesome? No! Now that the bad news for the player is out of the way, we could look at the things that are actually useful for the player, because otherwise, if there's no balance, it's just me cyberbullying all the children that play my game. Actually, I'm fine with that. I should just make a rage game. The advantage comes in the form of navigation, things the player can use in the environment to get around quicker, easier, and to better access other areas. Starting with the most troublesome to make, the chain, the rope-like object that allows the human to grab hold and swing like a monkey on a vine. Such a simple idea on paper, but my god is it complicated when nobody on the internet has done a tutorial on how to do it, and you yourself are a complete dumbass. This guy. The first thing I made for the environment, I believe, was this box. Super exciting, I know. However, we previously mentioned the box can be pushed by the human and not by the alien, which makes it semi-interesting. I bring this up because for the longest time I couldn't figure out how to make this idea work. I coded scripts to make the rigid body of the object static when the alien touches it, or changed the mass to make it impossibly heavy for the alien to push it, until I realized there is a setting you can set to make it so certain objects cannot apply forces to certain things. So I just really wasted so much time because I'm a dumbass. It's hard being stupid. To go with this box, however, I made this box dropper. Mark 1 looked like this. Garbage. But I revamped it to look like this. Oh, isn't she glorious? I made that all by myself. No tutorials, no AI. That's pure 100% raw intelligence right there. I'm back because I forgot even more significant and important changes to yeah, you know what, let's just get this over with. You obtain one of these boxes by pushing this red button, and it spits one out. It resets itself when pushed again, so you can't obtain unlimited boxes. Now, remember I mentioned I'd refrain from bringing up how to defeat the drone earlier? Well, this is how. Its function is to destroy the robots, whether that's a drone, a static turret, dynamic turret, it can blow up all of them in the same fire explosion I made using a spliced up rig of each sprite and Unity's particle system. Okay, now I'm going to pass you back over to Past Oliver, who's an even bigger dum-dum brain for leaving that important information that he should have added to the script earlier but didn't. Back to you. Then we have this moving platform. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a platform that moves. You're welcome. I basically plot where I want the platform's journey to start and where I want it to end, and the object bounces back and forward between these 2 points. Then we take a look at these fans, and I gotta say, I'm a fan of this one. You press this toggle and it turns green. Fan particles are dispensed and it makes the player go whee! useful for reaching high places or doing this. Finally, we have these conveyor belts. Not so amazing at moving the player, however, but with crates and other objects, works like a treat. The direction of the conveyors are indicated by this direction indicator, I guess. They can also be used to flip the direction of the linked conveyor belts, highlighted with this interactable glow. You may have noticed that this door doesn't have a fuse box, and you'd be correct. Congratulations, Gold Star. Instead, it uses this pressure pad, so when the player stands on it, the door's disabled, but only during the time the player stood on it, so you can use any other object like this box to unlock the door for the player to walk through. I feel like that's everything. Have I covered everything? When I make the video, it doesn't feel like that's a year's worth of progress. It doesn't at all. And like, make no mistake, it isn't. You can get this done in like 6 months. So don't be discouraged by my lack of progress, especially when there's also a lack of artwork and just everything else. There's no visuals. There's no beautizers. There's no backgrounds. There's nothing. There's no camera movement really. I mean, there is, but not really. So to you it might sound like a lot, but I guarantee that this could have been banged out in like a few weeks. Maybe months. I don't know. Depends how smart you are and how much experience you have. But if you're starting from nothing, then it's gonna be like just a few months if you really just stick at it. But I didn't, because I'm a lazy guy. I just remembered I have a younger audience now because my cousins watch this video. Hi guys. Trying to keep the swearing at a minimum. There's still so much to do, like dialogue, cutscenes, camera movement, and even artwork and design that I haven't touched yet. It's been a year and I'm like an eighth of the way complete. However, I am begging to those watching this video now, if you have the slightest interest in getting into game development, I swear, just do it. Do not let my lack of progress stop you from doing it. Sensei Wu always used to say, if you want something bad enough, you find a way to make it happen. I promise you can do it so much faster than I did. As much as I joke about hating the process, I promise it's so rewarding and a whole lot of fun. So check out some tutorials on how to get started, start small, make a few little projects, and then just build that dream game you've always wanted to see on the Steam page. Don't wait around for somebody else to discover your great idea. And with that said, see you in the next one. You thought I was going to end the video there on a light-hearted, positive, wholesome note? No. That's for the good YouTubers. Not around here. You might have noticed that the back of my chair is missing. If anyone's looked so deeply into my old videos, yeah, there used to be a headrest on this thing. But I recently turned 18 and had a party. Some idiot thought it would be a good idea to leapfrog over my chair. It snapped clean off. Just clean. It doesn't stick back on. I would know. I tried to gorilla glue it, but don't worry. He did send me 50 quid. 50 great British pounds. Yeah, that should about cover it. That should be fine. I think, you know what, that's like loads of money. I think I'm gonna have like some to spend afterwards. Like, it's so generous of him. I can't believe it. So yeah, on that delightful note, I guess this is where I'm gonna end the video. See you in 2026, I guess. Bye.